Oh, thank you, Deputy Speaker, and it's a privilege to be up speaking here today to oppose this motion and to condemn this motion, which I very much, like all of us on this side of the chamber, oppose. Because on this side of the chamber, contrary to what this motion claims and the drivel from the previous two speakers, the fact is that it is this Victorian Labor Government that is continuing to invest in our transport infrastructure, in our road infrastructure, in our public transport and services infrastructure, every single step of the way of which the Liberals, the Nationals and the Coalition have just continued to oppose and do everything they can to prevent us from investing in at every step of the way, particularly in my community, in the northern suburbs of my electorate of Pascoe Vale, in the electorate of Broadmeadows, the electorate of Greenvale. Never once have we seen the Liberals take any interest when it comes to taking real action supporting our investments and our commitment to improve our roadways and our transport infrastructure. Because the Liberals, the fact is, the only road that they know is the road that is the highway to hell, as Akadaka sings about very loudly and proudly. They're on the highway to hell. God forbid should they in one nation form a coalition at the next election. They will take us on that highway to hell of cuts, of public sell-offs and of privatisation. And that'll mean bad things for our public transport and particularly for our roads as well. Because the only road that they know of and that they've continued to be on is the long and winding road, as John Lennon and Paul McCartney have also previously told us all about, that long and winding road in opposition, which is still taking them only to the highway to hell. So that's the only road that they've been on and will continue to be on as far as I'm concerned, and we'll be doing everything we can to keep them on that road, Deputy Speaker. That's the road that we want them to stay on. We don't want them to get an off-ramp onto any other road. But look, as the Parliamentary Secretary for Community Safety, I also say that obviously road safety is of a very high priority for our government across the entire state through investments we've been making, which I will touch on. Also as the member for Pascoe Vale in my community too, as the member for Frankston I'm sure can also appreciate in his community in the southeast as well. This year, again, contrary to the claims that have been made by the opposition, the fact is just they can do a bit of homework for a change and open up the budget papers and they can see that in this year's budget we have allocated and invested $1.04 billion record, and it is a fact. They want to doubt this, they want to try and undermine this. $1.04 billion in investment specifically for roads and road maintenance, which is the highest in this state's history. And guess what? 70% of that funding, the member for Melton will appreciate this as well, 70% of that funding has been allocated to regional and rural communities. Right. Regional and rural communities are receiving 70% of that funding. And, just on the Coalition's own paperwork and their own figures, their own commitment, which I'll get to in a moment, only commits 25% of, should they form government, they'll only commit 25% of their roads funding to regional Victoria. So they're cutting funding. If they were to form government, cut funding to regional and rural communities, right? Which the Victorian Labor Government under this budget is allocating 70% of. Shameful. It is shameful that the party that claims to stand up for regional and rural communities will cut the funding before they even get into office, Deputy Speaker. And the last two budgets, again, they don't want to do their homework. They don't want to do their homework, Deputy Speaker, because the last two budgets, our Victorian Labor budgets, invest in the order of $1 billion per annum, at least for the last two budgets, right? And just over 24-25, for example, 211,000 potholes were repaired as a result of that investment, 200,000 potholes. And this year, 200,000, we're on track to fix 200,000 plus again, and already 187,000 have been fixed, Deputy Speaker. 187,000 fixed. And I had the privilege to actually drive down to Warrnambool actually to have that parliamentary hearing. It's a wonderful community down in Warrnambool, and I saw many of the upgraded works on those roads on the way in and out, like the member for South West Coast. So, and the other thing they forget to mention as well is, and I want to really acknowledge our lead speaker on this motion as well, the member for Werribee, who gave a really thorough and in-depth contribution with respect to the history of roadways and road infrastructure. even going back as far as the ancient Romans as well. But the fact that, and just to shadow his remarks in this respect, the opposition don't even want to talk about the impact that severe weather events and severe flooding and rainfall, substantial amounts of which we've had over the last couple of years, has had on our roadways, and the need for us to continue doing more to repair our roadways, particularly in regional and rural Victoria. So now is more important than ever that we invest more, not cut less into regional and rural roads like the Liberal opposition are proposing to do. And don't just take my word for it. When the Liberals made their announcement a few weeks ago, I think it was, or a couple of weeks ago, around their supposed road blitz, there was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of confusion by some of the stakeholders in terms of what exactly does this commitment mean, right? And Rural Councils Victoria itself said, quote, "It's unclear how much of the promised $5 billion would be spent on country roads specifically." Right? So even Rural Councils Victoria has immediately criticised and undermined this supposed election commitment from the opposition, because even to their own supposed stakeholders in regional rural communities, they're not being very clear with this Liberal National One Nation potential coalition, Deputy Speaker. And again, you can't make a commitment to invest supposedly more money into roads or into any policy area for that matter, Deputy Speaker, if on the other hand, at the same time, you are actually proposing, not you, Deputy Speaker, but the opposition is proposing to cut $40 billion from the Victorian budget. $40 billion they're proposing to take right out of the Victorian budget should they form government, part of which involves sacking 1 in 7 public servants. 1 in 7 public servants would be sacked, and they are kidding themselves if they think that he's not going to have an impact on frontline services, of course, like education, teachers, police, nurses, but also if they are kidding themselves if they think that he's not going to have an impact on the Department of Transport and Planning, which are responsible for helping maintain, upgrade and fix up and enhance our roadways and transport network. So they can't be claiming to do more with $40 billion less across the entire state budget and forward estimates, because when they were in government, when they were last in government for any meaningful period, which was during 2010 to 2014, how can we forget those forgetful Baillieu and Napthine years where they did absolutely nothing, and anything they did do harmed the interests of this state. When it came to roads, they don't want to talk about this. They don't want to mention this, Deputy Speaker, but they sacked 450 workers from Vic Roads. They sacked 450 workers from Vic Roads. They sacked 70 jobs. They cut 70 jobs from the TAC, the Transport Accident Commission, in Geelong, cutting 70 jobs. They cut $100 million from the Vic Roads budget across every single region in Victoria. Every single region in Victoria felt that cumulative cut of $100 million. And they also, most shamefully, Deputy Speaker, cut compensation to the TAC and grieving families. They cut the compensation packages to those people who need it most in their hour of needs. And again, this is in stark contrast. While they talk and cut on this side of the House, we are getting on with doing what matters when it comes to roads and infrastructure. And whether it's the big infrastructure projects that are needed to support our state's growing population and communities, through the Metro Tunnel, the Westgate Tunnel, North East Link, the M80 Ring Road upgrades, which support so many commuters across the northwestern suburbs, the upgrades we delivered through the Tullamarine corridor, particularly with linking in and out of Melbourne Airport, which is only continuing to grow in terms of visitation, or whether it's also the Tullamarine, Buller Road, Bell Street on and off ramp, untangling that previous bottleneck to keep the traffic flow moving in and out and around Essendon Airport and Essendon Fields. And in my community as well, record amounts of funding we've continued to deliver to improve our transport and road network, which the Liberals have never committed to and would never invest in, ever. And we're talking about the level crossing removals through the upfield line in Coburg. They never would have removed the level crossings at Moreland Road, Munro Street, Raynard Street and Munro Street. And they will never remove the 8 level crossings through Brunswick, let alone upgrade the rest of the upfield line, which we are doing a business case towards progressing as we speak. The new pedestrian crossing on Gaffney Street near Cumberland to support Pascoe Vale primary school families. They never would have delivered that. Reducing the speed limit and school speed zone, a new school speed zone on Murray Road, and also extended zone on Bell Street. They are committing to increasing speed limits with we've heard along the Princess Freeway to Geelong, when the parliamentary inquiry evidence has told us we need safer limits across the state. In that note, I oppose this motion and support our action.
The member